Good morning, everyone. Just want to kind of kick off our program here this morning with a few announcements and a couple of updates. Thank you for coming, especially appreciate you being here and supporting the CMAA for our June meeting and our presenters that are here today. Spent the last 2 days over in Phoenix where it was a lot cooler over there than it was here. Literally because it was 102 there, but with the 11% humidity, it felt like 95 instead of 115 like it felt here yesterday. So it was nice to be in a little arid climate for a couple of days. But we were at Leadership Conference, and a lot of new things are going to come out in the fall that we need to make you aware of. One of the big things probably is the dues structure for next year. And there'll be a lot of contact from National in rolling that out. But the biggest change I could say in it is the mega members, the Parsons and the Jacobs and the AECOMs are really going to get some really good benefits out of it, because now we're doing away entirely with slots. There'll be no more slots. So mega members and even tiered organizations for owners and private will have unlimited slots, which also helps mean, so if you leave one of your companies and go to another company, it's portable now. You have portability with that. So now if they're a member, you're a member still too, so you don't have to go through that whole deal of trying to change and move memberships and all that kind of stuff. Everything's going to transfer. That's going to be a lot easier for National to keep up with and make it easier for you to get in and out of the websites and get to your programs and get to your training and enroll in the professional development courses and the CCM courses and things like that. So that's a big change. And for us as a chapter, there's some changes there as well. We're going to get better access to data and things like that. So a lot of good things coming down the road, and you'll be hearing about them as we get closer to October and November when your dues are sent out and invoices are sent out for dues. So be ready to hear about all of that. We've also been doing really well in getting the Scholarship Classic up and going. We've got 11 teams now that are sponsoring stations. We could use about 9 or 10 more. So the Scholarship Classic is going to be the August the 19th, Friday, right before dove season opens up. It's going to be out at Joshua Creek Ranch. There's got great opportunities for networking and have a lot of fun that day. Our station sponsors are $1,200. Our individual teams are $800, and you can have an individual member shoot if you want for $200, or you can come out and network and enjoy the meal for I think $40. So it's a great day. It's going to be fun. I encourage everybody to participate and join in. We also have the scholarship applications are still open, but the scholarship application will close the end of this month. So I encourage you, anybody that has a high school student that's graduating and going into the construction sciences program somewhere here in, whether it's here or anywhere else, as long as they live here or have had residency here in our territory, which is huge. It's anything from between Austin and Waco all the way down to the valley, and from Corpus Christi all the way out to El Paso. So, if you know anybody, have them go to the website. It's on the back of the program. Go to the scholarship tab and fill out the application and get it into us. So that'll be closing next Friday, the 30th. So I encourage you to get the word out. Also have coming up now, we're getting ready to roll into election time. Our elections will be in August and September. New board will take seats in October. So if you're interested in participating, we really would like to have you be a part of our board organization. I'll be moving off as president to past president. Jacob Powell with Pape Dawson Engineering, who's not here today, but he'll be moving up to president, and then vice president, secretary, treasurer. Those seats will be available. We hope we can keep Frank and John on the board as well and moving forward with us. We're talking about expanding the board next year. So, there's going to be some opportunity in 2024 as well if these 23 elections you're not successful. But really, we'd like to get you to participate. We want to encourage you. We've got 2 really good committees right now. Communications, John could use some help there if you're interested and like that kind of stuff. John does a good job, but he could use a little help on the committee. And Dawn Vernon, our programs chair, she could use a little help pulling these programs together and getting them organized, and some of the things we do for next month, which would be July, will be Christmas in July. Still be the 4th Thursday, but we'll be out at Blue Star again at the brewery there, and it'll be a big deal with that. So we'll get the toys for the kids. And then in August, again, we'll have the Scholarship Classic on the 19th, and then we'll be back to programs again in September. So with that, I want to introduce our first speaker, and Gary's with the Great Springs Project. Gary's been around the block a time or two. Gary has legal expertise, including real estate transactions and real estate finance, water rights, business development, and contract negotiations. Gary has served as a board chairman for the Hill Country Alliance and the Middle Rio Grande Development Council in the Southwest Area Regional Transit District. And Gary, how long have you been with Great Springs and part of this program?
3.5 years.
3.5 years. Okay. So with that, Gary Merritt.
So what I'll do is I'm going to try to focus on a couple of things here, really get down into some of the weeds of the way that we do our work, and because I think that's probably something for you all that would be more interesting to you than kind of the bigger things. I will start with some of the vision things for us. So we're a nonprofit. We're a 501c3. We were formed specifically for the purpose of working from here to Austin on the west side of 35 for the most part, to do 2 things. We do land conservation projects that support the Edwards Aquifer. So we're basically a real estate developer. We're developing for parks, open space, and trails. We find opportunity to buy property and then put conservation easements on it or move it into conservation for the most part. And we'll do mixed development. We'll do some development. We'll do some conservation together. If there's an entity, a city or a county that's looking for park space, we can help them with that. And we work with private landowners on conservation easements for their property or some combination of development and conservation. Then we work with developers, straight up developers, on their parks and open space and trails as well, and the connectivity of that. So there's the real estate side, and then the trail, connecting trail from San Antonio to Austin, from the Alamo to the Capitol. Those aren't just 2 cities though. There are 12 cities, 4 counties, 3 river authorities, and then all the developers in between. And so those are all part of our constituency. We work with all of those groups and all those people because there's tremendous work that's being done. We're going to hear more about this today in San Antonio, and we can have the same San Antonio conversation in all of these other 11 cities along the way. Go this way? Great. My task is to stay in generally one spot though, so I'm going to work on that. So just a little overview of this. These 4 springs are the springs of Great Springs. From San Antonio Springs, we use the Blue Hole on the campus of Incarnate Word is the southern terminus for the connected San Antonio to Austin Trail. Then Comal Springs, San Marcos Springs, and Barton Springs. You can see on the slide behind me, the connection of those springs has been known since there have been people here. So 4,000 years old. That's a rock art panel that's west of here, Del Rio, Comstock, where the Pecos River goes into the Rio Grande, around Seminole Canyon State Park. That's the White Shaman panel. If you go to the Whitty, they've got great exhibits and tours. And so if you haven't ever taken any of the rock art tours, I would encourage any of those Whitty tours are fantastic. So the why we do what we do is about communities. It's about resources. We're all dealing with pretty intense development. And so that the organization was stood up now because the pressure is so great if we're going to do this project, we have to do it now. I've said I've been here for 3.5 years doing this work. My background is as a real estate lawyer and in public service, particularly on the county side, and working for the Association of Counties, and then working with regional organizations, either in conservation like Hill Country Alliance, or on transportation like my local transit district. Back in, I'm from Riall County, Leakey, or my Council of Governments, but bringing people together around a regional vision to address regional challenges and development. There's an opportunity here with the pace of development to bring the resources that we want to make sure are protected and preserved. Open space and the trail. As I said, we work primarily over the recharge zone of the Edwards from here to Austin. We were formed for that specific purpose. There's great work that's being done by the city of San Antonio and others to the west of here, where San Antonio gets its drinking water for the most part. But between here and Austin, there's less conservation work that's being done. There are fewer organizations. There's the fewer whys that are there. There's some land trust work that's being done, but we're tasked with being in that space. This is a trail for everyone, so a big part of our challenge is how to connect these communities along the way. Part of that work is bringing circles of people into the work. This conversation is part of that for us. So we have an equity task force that has helped us to develop some guidelines on how we bring people together around this infrastructure, the trail infrastructure, particularly to some extent the land. We have a steering committee that's made up of people from that work in the city staff and county staff, nonprofits, the river authorities, as I mentioned. Those are all represented in the work that we do. This group has put together a trails plan. I'll talk about that in just a minute. That trails plan is on our website. We work through partnerships all along the way. We have a board of directors that represents the region as well as our constituency, from real estate developers to people that are involved in transportation to people that are very focused on conservation, and then representing Austin, San Antonio, and the places in between. Particularly, I'll note there for San Antonio, Hope Andrade, who's a former Texas Secretary of State, also on the Texas Transportation Commission and the Texas Workforce Commission. April Ancira from Ancira family, car dealership family that's here. We have Mayor Hardberger who's on our advisory committee, folks like that. This work of connecting the trail, we are among the current stewards of this regional vision, but there's been tremendous work that's been done over the years by AMPO, by TxDOT, and we work to pick up that work and connect it. That's how we got to the Trails Plan. So in the Trails Plan, we worked with our committee on finding what are the plans that are out there that say trails, and then sifting through those to get to the viable plans, what's actually been built, what's going to be built soon, and then where are the gaps that we need to work on right away. We work to provide funding sources for the public agencies using public funds, and to some extent on the development side, they can access public funds if their parks and trails are publicly accessible. And so we worked to make that happen as much as we can. This is also on our website, an economic impact analysis. We had one of the very first things we had done was, what's the economic impact of the idea of a 100-mile trail? We'll refine this now that we have our alignments. We'll add some categories to this. That number will definitely go up. But $56 million just at first blush on what this regional trail would be. I mentioned our trails plan, and I would recommend everyone to, if you're interested in this, look at our website, pull the plan down, look at it, and then call me or text me or email me and say, I want more of that. I'm not sure about that. Tell me about that. This is good. This needs work, right? We're all in this together. Now that you're hearing my voice, we're in this together. We're doing this project together. So please reach out to me about that. We have our steering committee together. We update this plan each year. And so that plan will be updated. We have new maps with some changes and some other things that are added. And so hopefully by the end of this month, that'll be up on the website. For the 100 miles, we're working to build 15 segments of trail that are 6 to 10 miles apiece. So you can see that is taken from the Trails Plan. I'm going to drop into one of those maps in just a minute. But that we work on all 15 of those segments all the time, figuring out where we can add right of way, what part of that trail is already on the ground, what do we need to work on today so that we'll be ready to build in 2 years, what do we work on today that we'll be ready to build in 10 years. Alamo to the capital by 2036, the Texas Bicentennial. So we've got to be, as we say back in my hometown of Leakey, we've got to get after it, and that's what we do. This is from the Trails Plan. This is a question that comes up a lot. We connect the trails that are being built by the communities along the way and by the real estate developers along the way. And we build our own trail in the gaps. And so that trail is different in different places. The way San Antonio builds trails with the Linear Creekways program, hardtop, concrete, is very different from the way that San Marcos, for example, builds its trails. They like soft surface, single track trails. New Braunfels is a combination of that. Selma has trails along Cibolo Creek that are a certain way. Schertz has trails that are a certain way. And so we work with all of those people on making the connections. These are just a couple of maps for representation. You can see them in the trails plan itself, but you see the alignments of where trail exists and then the trail plans that are called out. In the middle of that slide there, you see a wavy green line. It's a trail corridor for us. That says there's no plan that shows a trail right-of-way or where a trail is going to go. And so our job at Great Springs Project is to work with those landowners along the way to find willing landowners that are interested in a trail corridor or conservation project with a trail associated with it. We're doing that work right now. So we are, there are 1,400 landowners that own, 1,400 parcels of land that are 50 acres or more over the recharge zone between here and Austin. And over the next 18 months, we're going to be in communication with all of those landowners, building our pipeline for conservation as well as right-of-way for the trail. We work big and small. The top of that screen is property that we put under contract just west of San Marcos. We put a group together to buy that property, to do mainly conservation on it. That it's two branches of Sink Creek that come together, and so the heart of that property, it was absolutely worthy of conservation. Conservation was funded in part by Hays County, which passed the Parks and Open Space Bond, and partly by Edwards Aquifer Authority that wanted to do some work in that area for some research. And so they're partnered on the conservation easement. That property also, on one side of it, it had very few conservation resources, and that property was really set up well for development. And so the owners were able to develop 10 lots, building lots, residential lots there, and then provided a trail easement around two sides of that property. There's a small trailhead owned by the county, so we're working on the construction of that trail on that property with the county that owns the trail easement, and then moving that trail to other places to connect back into City of San Marcos Trail. The bottom of that slide is in San Antonio. We were approached by the makers of solar lights. Fornash is the name of that company. They wanted to have their product somewhere in the corridor, and so we worked with the City of San Antonio Parks Department, and we're able to put those lights up on Alligator Creek, on the trail, not Alligator Creek, on Apache Creek. Yes, for the trail, but even more importantly, what you don't see in that photo, there's a big apartment complex that's next to the trail there, and the people that live in that apartment complex, the parents are walking. One of those parents, if they have two parents, are walking to work very often, early in the morning and late at night. And the kids that live in that apartment complex are walking across that bridge to Girls and Boys Club, or they're walking to school. And so the lights help them in the mornings and in the evenings, as well as the trail. Super quick, last two slides. This really reflects the way that we work. We want to use all the opportunities there are to connect trail. This is Wetmore Road, right over here. This is a project that we and others have looked at for the last City of San Antonio bond. We're going to be looking at that again. This is the trail to the airport. You can see the airport on the right side of the screen, separated bike paths, walking paths. That overhead utility line on the left side is actually the railroad track in real life when you drive down Wetmore. There's a tremendous opportunity to use a long stretch of a very straight road that has no curb cuts on one side to put a great trail together that will connect some north side of San Antonio to the airport and to the south side from Wetmore Road, like to where Guido is, and then the quarry, and then down to Alamos Park. When we did that slide, if there were TxDOT people in the room, I had to say, this is aspirational. But then TxDOT changed their design manual, and now everything that's in that slide is allowed, which is a nice thing. That's our information. I put Kenny on there too. Kenny Skrbanek is one of my trails and transportation planners. He lives here in San Antonio. So please, that's my cell number. That's my email address. Reach out to me. And then if you can't catch me, catch Kenny. So thank y'all.
Hernan is with Bain Bonita Bain. Hernan received a civil engineering degree from UTSA and has been at Bain Medina Bain for over 25 years. Congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
a great milestone.
Absolutely.
He has managed over a dozen greenway segments totaling more than 40 miles. Hernan oversees the programs for Bain Medina Bain University, providing monthly education opportunities for Bain Medina Bain team members to learn about civil engineering, surveying, CE&I, business development, marketing, and other business related topics. Hernan, we appreciate you being here and look forward to hearing what you have to say about the rest of these trails projects.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And I guess I got to thank Dawn for making sure that I was here today. She got me to put together a presentation, and I'm glad to do it. I really been doing these trail and greenway projects for a long time. I started a long time ago when they weren't very popular. Actually, people were kind of scared about them and stuff like that. So what I'm going to talk about is a bit of what it is how it is to build a trail, what kind of lessons we've learned, what kind of team we put together, and some of the segments that are kind of neat that I kind of like about it, and things, and some of the projects that you might have walked through already. So we've done Fort Sam. Actually, I started off with the wrong one. Fort Sam Houston is a segment that goes through Fort Sam. And that one has been in the works for a long, long time. I mean, we started when it was the Army, then it got changed to the Air Force, and the environmental processes through there are quite amazing. So we're still working on that one. We have to move some horses out of the way. And once we move the horses out of the way, we'll be able to put that segment there. So the I-10 Loop 410 Leon Creek to the Rim segment. If anybody's been on the segment under 410 through Los Patios, worked on that one a long, long time ago. And I do want to give a shout out to Lorena Carter, because a long time ago I was designing trails and everything like that, but Lorena is now the main designer of trails. She's working on I don't know how many segments right now. And I kind of just want to show you the type of team that we have to put together for the trails systems. There are the trails cross a lot of different properties. So some of them might be over the Edwards Aquifer. Some of them are going to be going over cultural resources areas that need to be investigated. So we definitely need environmental people, team. We need cultural resources on our projects. We need geotech, we need landscape architects. So as you can see, surveyors, the team can be quite varied, and the greenways themselves can go through a lot of different types of lands. I mean, if you go up on the Leon Creek segment that goes to Eisenhower, and then that turns into the segment of the Salado segment that goes to 1604, you're walking right next to a quarry. You're walking next to a 100-foot precipice, and it's all rocky. But if you go to the Medina River segment down on the south side, I mean, you're like walking in a bit of like a little jungle, it seems like. Nobody's out there. There's all kinds of animals. Definitely don't leave before the lights go out, because that can get scary out there. So we have I hope some of the people are here, not here, but that is about the size of the team we need for the project. So the Fort Sam Houston, I bring that one up because it's kind of like it has taught us so many lessons. On this one, we even had to do unexploded ordnance survey. I didn't even know what that was. There was about 300 feet out of these 3.7 miles that they had not surveyed to see if there were munitions there or unexploded ordnance. We actually had to fly in a team from, I can't remember, Arkansas or something like that, that had to come and do a survey, and we had to clear those 300 feet. So I almost bring this one up because I'll be around to see this one be built. And I know one person that wants to see it built even more than me, and that's Brandon Ross. He's been working on this trail segment for a while. So this is another a segment that just opened up near UTSA. I don't know if anybody lives around that area, but we built a Markson Park and the Maverick Trailhead right there, and that connects UTSA to the system of the Cuesta Creek Greenway trails. That one's kind of neat. It goes under the road right there on a culvert, and this property was given by the HOA that's next to it. They didn't even know they owned that whole property. And when they found out that they owned the property and that they had to maintain it, they gave it to the city, and the city was able to put a really neat park. That park right there is for all accessibilities. Kids with that may not be able to see, or the playground there is very inclusive. The person that gave the land has a child that has special needs, and they use that park. They really appreciate it. The city helped them out with that park. Another thing about this park here is, one of the things I see is that there's a lot of different types of funding for these type of projects. Like you were mentioning, TxDOT sometimes helps out a lot of cities with TxDOT projects, but this one got a lot of money from the community to be able to make it into an all-inclusive park. So I'm surprised at how people are really getting into their trail system. This is the Salado Creek, Leon Creek. If anybody's been to UTSA segments that go through 1604 and cross I-10, that take you all the way to the rim, and then you can go from there to Eisenhower Park, and there you're going from the Leon Creek, going up to the top of the creek ridge and into the Salado Creek ridge. So that's actually a connection that left the creeks and went up the ridge of the creek to meet with the other system. So we've connected now the Salado and the Leon Creek. And now you'll be able to pretty much go from Eisenhower Park and take your bike down to the Missions. I mean, that's a possibility now. So this is a project that some of the items that we saw on this project quite a bit is, of course, we crossed TxDOT about 8 times, and we had to, do special environmental assessments for TxDOT for their right-of-way. We had to submit our plans to TxDOT to get them approved through that. That was a bit different. This one, of course, had also water pollution abatement plans. So you got to make sure that a lesson learned there is, maybe instead of going with a 50-foot easement, right, which would require you to put an engineered swale strip for TCEQ, ask for a bit more, and you can go with a 70-foot easement, and then you can go with a natural filter strip. That is a huge difference, and I'll tell you why. Because sometimes these trails are built under canopies. There's no sun. It's hard to keep water. They're way out there, right? There's no irrigation. But an engineered filter strip is going to require you to get it up to 80% vegetated. And the contractor is going to be out there hating you trying to get that vegetated. So if you ask for a little bit more easement, you can have a natural vegetated swale, which you don't need to revegetate. It's vegetated. And the funny thing is that the vegetation in those areas is nothing. It's rock. But we're supposed to bring it back to 80% when the area around it is just rock, So that was a lesson learned. It's passed. It's good to go. But that's just something that you need to look at. Depending on the area that you are, the trail may need to have different designs. The trail also is built in sometimes violent areas, because the best places to put these trails is on the floodplain, where the land is the cheapest. It interconnects because creeks just flow one way, and people are more apt to give you or sell you the land when they can't develop it, and you can't really develop a lot of this land. But now that means that you're building the trail in a floodplain, and that's what I mean by violent. It could be some of these creeks or rivers. They can flow pretty hard, pretty fast. So you have to make sure that the trail can handle the flows. You have to make sure that you have deep enough toe downs, that hopefully you can hit a rock, or that you model the proposed trail on the floodplain to make sure you don't have a negative impact. And this connection from the Leon Creek to the Salado Creek had it all. One of the best parts, I don't know if anybody's walked these trails, but that Eisenhower down the Salado Creek to 1604, you just got to see that view of that creek, of that quarry cut right there. I'm just very surprised at the very different views you can get out of San Antonio. And I highly encourage you to use these trails, especially that Medina one. Don't get lost out there. But Joe Canada, we worked with Joe on this project a long time ago. I'm bringing this one up because it was a long time ago. It was one of the first kind of trails experiences I had. It's the trail that goes around Southside Lions, and then Lorena worked with Joe again on the connection of the main park area to the lake. So, and I'll tell you, people, if you build them, people use them. And a long time ago, when I started on the central segments, the segments that go under 410, they were looking at trail sizes of 8 feet, 10 feet for the main ones and stuff like that. And now if you go to the Leon Creek trails over there by UTSA, between Opishnable and stuff like that, there's traffic. Like, we need another lane, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's traffic out there. There's going to be expanding them. I'm glad now we're going with tributary trails that are already 12 feet wide. And all of a sudden we're seeing things like people are speeding. They have these $8,000 bikes that can go really fast and stuff like that. So the more people use them, the more we learn, and we're making them better. And I think Great Springs projects and NACTO and all of those are great resources to see how the new ways to build the trails. This is the Leon Creek Levi to Lackland Trail. This just got opened up over there close to Nelson Wolff Stadium on that side of town. This is the Medina River Leon Creek Bridge replacement. Well, actually, this was an interesting project because this bridge here, down here, was left half built a long time ago. It was out there for a long time, just half built across Leon Creek. Contractor had some issues with some of the piers. I don't know. That was not my project at that time, but this one we were able to come in and finish the bridge on Leon Creek, and we put another bridge on the Medina River. And now this segment was opened up. The sad thing is that so much money had already been spent on this segment, which is just south of the Toyota plant. This is a neat place to go. And I know it's kind of far, but people should really get out to this segment. Start off over there at the Donkey Lady Bridge and work your way east on this one. But it just needed these two bridges to finish it off. So I was happy that we were able to help the city on this project and finalize that segment. One of the things that I think Great Springs projects will tell you, and I'll tell you as a big lesson learned, is these trails are going to cross a lot of railroad lines. So that's another item that is a safety issue, and the railroad doesn't want you near their line. So one of the things they want you to do is, their preferred method is that you go over the railroad. So now you have to build a pedestrian bridge over the railroad, right? But the preferred method is to go under the bridge, so that you can go under the bridge. But what you have to do is you have to provide a canopy to make sure that the rock that sometimes the railroad can make jump out of the railroad is made out of the rock that's put on there, so that it protects the people under it. So the main thing about that is that you have to prove to the railroad that you're not going to have an impact on the floodplain, and now you're putting this canopy on the floodplain. So you just have to model it for them. You have to make sure that you don't I mean, putting a pedestrian bridge over the railroad can sometimes kill the project. So you have to think about how am I going to talk to the railroad and see how I can get this trail without having to literally spend the whole budget building a overhead bridge. Anywho, that's it for me.
How can our AEC community get involved in these projects? Is there opportunity for, Gary, I know you've got several segments in several parts of the state here between here and Austin. How do we get our community involved in these projects?
So a couple of different ways. First is, now you have all of my contact information, so just reach out to me, somebody on our team, and we can talk about kind of where the next segment looks like it's going to be, the right-of-way shaping up and the planning and shaping up, and it's getting ready for design and construction. So this is not our trail, it's our trail, and so I want to share that information with everyone that wants to help build the trail. The other way is to, for us, we send out a newsletter quarterly where we talk about the trail segments that are coming online or they're online. And so that's just an easy way 4 times a year to keep up with the different segments of 100+ miles. But the first way is the best way. Just reach out to me and let me know what you're looking for, and I'll tell you what I know.
I do want to point out that now you are being called out on the RFQs. Now they want us to see how it is that we plan on connecting to the Great Spring Project. So I had not heard that from cities before.
Okay.
So that is a new thing that I've heard in 2023. I was going for stuff in 2022, and I didn't hear much about connecting to the Great Spring Projects. And I think one of the main things that helped me, that it kind of made me believe, okay, this thing is really for real, was your new report, the one that has the plans in the back. I think that when you show the communities how these trails can actually go through their portion of the trail, it visually with a topographic map showing where these go through, it makes it a lot more real for them.
Mm-hmm. Good.
And I appreciate you saying that, but let me just add also that I've spent this morning talking about San Antonio to Austin, but in the last 18 months, I've been in substantive conversations with cities all around San Antonio and Austin about how to connect their trails into this spine. Seguin, Martindale outside of San Marcos, Lockhart, Round Rock, Wimberley, Bernie, Del Rio. And so all those communities, and I'm sure there are more, they're actively looking to how to move their trails in this direction.
I noticed you had the connection that went kind of along the Cibolo that picked it up there on the far east side of San Antonio to bring it down into that Cibolo connection down there, and that's going through a lot of really wild territory.
It is. There's a group, the Northeast Partnership, that's those cities that are there, including San Antonio to New Braunfels, and they're really looking at, some of them are really looking at that Cibolo Creek as a pretty tremendous opportunity to build trail, maybe to connect from I-35 to I-10.
Yeah.
In Barry County, those 3 projects you had, how much of that real estate has been acquired, and how much of that real estate is constructed, and how much of it is over the aquifer?
Sure. The trail is the network. You saw that there's some places that it loops, but let's say it's 100 miles. There's 35 miles of it that's on the ground right now. Taking the work that's been done in the city of San Antonio and Barrett County, the River Authority, and then the cities in between, the New Braunfels, all the way up to Austin. So that 35 miles on the ground. There's another 30 miles that's in the very short-term plans of those cities. So they've got right-of-way. They're working toward design and construction. So we're working on right-of-way acquisition for that missing 35 miles right now. And then was there another question there? Sorry.
How much is in Barrett County?
I don't know that number just off the top of my head, but
And in Barrett County, how much of it is over the aquifer?
yeah, almost all of it. So that was the other question about the offer. I would say of those trail, the alignments, 90% of it is on the west side of 35, so over the Edwards. In each of the community cities, there's East Side Trail, that's connecting into that, but the alignments are on the west side.
On the recharge.
Yeah.
So Gary, are you getting funding from Campo and AMPO and to help defer these acquisitions, or how are you receiving some of the funding, particularly in the areas that are affected?
Yeah, please do talk to AMPO and Campo about this. We've applied to TxDOT for a planning grant through the Transportation Alternative Program Call for Projects. To take our trail plan and to refine it into a plan, and then where there's full right-of-way to do design for those segments. Otherwise, for right-of-way acquisition, we as a nonprofit we're fundraising for that. We're finding funding for it. If there's a land conservation opportunity that has a trail component, that's a sweet spot for us. We can do both of them. If it's just trail right-of-way itself, then we're raising the money to hold that right-of-way option or until we know that the trail is going to go in there. We need the easement.
Okay.
And some of the segments that you have put up in your slide, we're working on the one through New Braunfels, the Dryco Mal Creek, and that one is being funded by local governments funds through TxDOT. So definitely, I see the smaller cities should hopefully have somebody in their staff going after the local government's projects, because there's no reason not to.
Right.
I mean, if you just want the people that you work for in your community to just like you, build them trails. That's what happens now. And another way that I see that the trails are kind of taken off, because a long time ago people did not want them. People were scared that there was going to be a trail behind their house.
Yes.
And that has changed. I mean, one of the things I tell people is, like, go to Zillow and punch in, go to see the houses near a trail and see what they're putting on when they sell their houses. So one of the smart things that I see the city doing when they're trying to implement a new segment, so they have to go introduce it to the neighborhood there or the HOAs around the area, is that they'll take a person from an old HOA that had a trail back then that they didn't want it. And then they go and bring a citizen from that area and tell them, it's like, we didn't want it, and now that we have it, we would not give it up.
Yep.
So it really is, I mean, where these trails start to tendril out, it just makes it better.
Yeah, I can attest to that. I spent some time on local government, and the not in my backyard syndrome is hard to convince somebody. But I worked hard to get a trail behind our house as part of the ability to show our community that, look, it's a good thing. I'm willing to do it. You should be, considering it too. And I got to tell you, that thing's a super highway. I mean, it's right. We got to add a lane to it.
Yeah, that's right. It's an elevated lane on top of it. Yeah.
So anyhow, I think that's the tough one, is to get it past the stigma. Mike?
Correct. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, we have not done it yet, but we're about to do it. We received Texas Parks and Wildlife Recreational Trails grant for a segment of trail near San Marcos. And so we're going to follow the city of San Marcos's procurement process for that for ourselves as the project. We're the project manager for the real estate developer there, but we're going to match the community system. There's a couple of other segments in there. We were the highest ranking non-awarded for the property. That was the one I showed, that Hays County owns the trail easement, but we'll be the project manager for that as well. And in every place, if there's not another organization or entity that will be the project manager, then we'll assume that role.
Okay, so you would manage it yourself, and then you do, like, in that case, you do like the request for qualifications for design, and then probably a low grade construction.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Talking about the linear path, do you see a time that you will ever separate them from shared use path into cycle track and pedestrian walking?
I do, and especially in some areas that are being used a lot. I mean, I, go on a weekend, maybe not these very terrible hot weekends, but go on a weekend and on near the Opish Navel, between UTSA and Opish Navel, those segments are very highly used. And now I was noticing there's going to be a 5K. All kinds of companies are starting their 5Ks on these segments. So I could see that, yes, absolutely, because the difference in velocities of people in bikes to people that are walking can be quite considerable. So I think because they're so popular, the people are demanding it. They're going to demand it. And when they demand you to build them something, especially when it's a hike and bike trail, the city's going to put it on the bonds, and people are going to overwhelmingly vote for it because they want it.
I've been on the trail when there's been a 5K. There's probably been about 4 or 5 years now. There was a 5K happening, and I was just going to work early in the morning, and I was just behind someone, and someone was running, and there were some people riding bikes, and they were going in and out on the trail, and I was riding my bike to work, and the lady running on the 5K gave me a horrible, dirty look, and I was obeying the rules, and I said, I'm not with them. I'm not with them. I'm obeying. You pedestrians have right away. I'm waiting. I'm not with them.
Yeah, separate.
It's already past that day. That was 4 years
Yeah.
ago. You need to go ahead and do that.
Well, you know what? You know what is neat is when along that same segment, you will see, if you look off to the side, you will see that there's a lot of other bike trails that are built on the side. But you know, those can be kind of scary too. If you're just riding your bike trying to get from one place to the other one, you're not going to take the bumpy one, right? But yes, I mean, cyclists are probably going to always push for more,
Well,
and that's good.
yeah.
They've been one of the impetus of getting these trails built.
I think it's like anything else. You have bike lanes, dedicated bike lanes, and you still have pedestrians in those. You know, so you've got to, if there's no way to police it, you're still going to have the conflict. But I think putting it there and putting the pathway there and giving the indication that it's there helps somewhat. And you know, that's always the fight in how you go through with them is, you know, I'll just say as plain as I can, you can't stop crazy or you can't stop stupid, you know. And if people are gonna do it, they're gonna do it unless you've got some way to police it and stop it, you know.
Yeah.
Well, those old trails, what we used to ride before you put your linear trails in.
Yeah.
Now we want the cycle track.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. You know, I did want to bring up some of the items, some of the issues that can happen during construction, right? Because this is construction management, and the thing is, you're going to have contractor in the creeks building these trails, and I'll tell you, sometimes these showers come without warning, right? So making sure that you keep your valuable stuff hopefully outside of the floodplain. I mean, it's happened many times when the contractor has, they're like, everything's wiped out, everything's down the creek. We need to talk about, I need a little bit more time. So imagine where these things are being built. Imagine having to take concrete all the way out to the Medina River Trail. You know, some of the items that you may want to take a look at when you're maybe pricing a project like this.
Yeah.
Have you seen any improvement in environmental permitting aspect?
Well, the city now, if it's a bond project, they're doing it. So
Streamlining, very first segment from Walker, Hardburger Park, but you had to go through organizations that weren't every end.
well,
Now that there's been so many, have a process now to streamline it.
you know, the city now is much more involved in the environmental permitting, so they seem to help quite a bit. And I highly recommend using somebody who's done the environmental for this very type of project. They know what to look for right away, and that's why. And I think the city knew that because they're the ones doing the environmental for the trails now, the same company that I had up there. So now the one that you want to get ahead of is the cultural resources. You wouldn't think so,
Yeah.
but we had a trail. All of a sudden, we were ready to go, and the cultural resources person said, "It's like, hold on a second. You got to make sure you stay out of this whole area here." And what is there? It's like, I can't tell you, just stay out of it. So we had to make some last minute alignment changes because of the cultural resources that are found in the creeks especially.
Yeah.
That's where people gather. That's where things flush down to. So that's one thing that maybe surprises a team. I didn't know that I needed a cultural resources sub consultant on this, you know? So Joe, I think it has gotten a little bit better because the city's more involved in it. And if you're doing a trails project for the city, I no longer need to have an environmental sub-consultant. They do it. Unless we're acquiring an easement.
Yeah.
When they need to do a level 1 on that, just on that easement.
Gary, how's the environmental and the cultural resources translate to your scopes?
For us, there's not that much of the, if you look at the full 100 miles, that is necessarily creekways projects. I mean, in the cities, there'll be some, but so much of this is either urban, so it's a TxDOT shared use path, or it's very rural, single track, soft surface, and so it's less of a
Yeah.
challenge.
Less of a concern, and there's no requirement yet through specifications and.
TCEQ,
Yeah.
Because we are over the Edwards, and we do have those clearances.
Yeah.
One thing is TxDOT though.
Yeah.
Okay, everything's, what I said was true, except when you're crossing TxDOT right away. Make sure you will need a sub-consultant that understands what it is to do the environmental for TxDOT. And usually, what your sub will ask is, I need to have a meeting with TxDOT so that I know what they're going to ask for. And that's the one sub-consultant that I have to set up meetings for before I can get a proposal. So that when there's TxDOT.
Yeah.
Jeff, I would echo that anytime right away work for the federal funding trigger, the
Yep.
potential legal process and resources and such a well said, even if it's local money.
Yep. Yep.
Will you be taking on the linear paths as part of your trail?
Yeah, so I want y'all to build as much trail as possible.
Yeah.
Keep going. I appreciate you saying New Braunfels. Let's talk about San Marcos.
San Marcos.
Let's go. Yeah, so that's
Kyle is looking at,
yes.
Kyle is looking at trails.
they are. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it's already it's on your maps and so
it is.
it is?
Yeah, so if you look at our trails plan and you look at the alignments, you'll see we're picking up segments of the Howard WP Greenway Trail System.
John?
I had a pleasure of living in the state of Ohio, and they have their trails that run through the whole state, and they converted old railroads that were abandoned to trails.
Rails to trails.
And what they had done was they have little rest areas that actually turn into like little communities, little ice cream shops, restaurants, these places for all the cyclers and stuff, some small little museums along the routes and stuff like that. Is there any planning or anything around that to kind of beef up some of the more usage for these?
What I see is where the trails go, those things are starting to happen. I mean, I'll tell you right now, if you go on the trail that crosses north of 1604, that crosses I-10, that connects to La Cantera, the La Cantera development there, and that may not be a mom and pop place, but people on the trail can now get off the trail, walk up the trail, go to the panaderia there, and grab a coffee, and then continue on their walk. So when we went there, a lot of the people that were at that La Panaderia, which is like a breakfast, really good, they were from the trail. They weren't using the parking lot. They accessed that place from the trail. So if you go look at what happens, especially when the trails cross under a bridge near a development, it does spark that. And I mean, people with food trucks, they see that, they want to be near that.
And for us, we're getting, because we're pushing look at the website, look at the trails plan. So we're getting people calling us and asking us about, where there's not already a trail plan, a specific area alignment. Is there an opportunity to bring it by my store, my restaurant? It's a beer garden. It's something like that. And I'll say also, a few people are saying, I'm not interested in a trail on my property. Right? That's absolutely understandable too. These are private property owners we're talking about. So some people do not want that. Others do want that economic opportunity. On the rails to trails, we've scoured. We look all the time. We found no abandoned rail lines that we can use. I appreciate the conversation about moving trail under or over rail lines, and I stop my bicycle on Solalo Creek every single time, and I look up and I see the trail going under, and I see the nets that catch, and I thank God for you and for Brandon Ross and everyone else that made that happen. And we need more of that.
Yeah.
We need more of that. There are 15 places on our trail segment that we would interface with UP, and if we could solve that challenge in a more effective way, these projects would be faster and incredibly less expensive.
Well, I can turn you on to one that's out there that we've worked on. That's the old number 9.
Yes.
And the old number 9 stops at the Cibolo Creek right now.
Yes.
And it still would carry further south and come out almost down by the Dominion and I-10. So there's an alignment that's sitting there, and it runs parallel to I-10 for a ways as well that you could pick up on that. So I mean, the old number 9's still got a lot of future. So
Okay.
that's the old Fredericksburg line that went from Fredericksburg to San Antonio.
It's
Oh,
interesting.
okay.
I was talking with some people in Bernie and some people that are doing some development by Fair Oaks, and
Yeah.
talking about that. So I want to talk to people after we get out of here. That's
So-
what I meant.
But do we have any more questions? Here's one.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Carl. Fort Sam, which only has lessons learned. That's a project chock full of lessons learned. We started that 12 years ago, something like that, with city funding. We took it to 100%, then the horses. And the horses are still there. So then the city was able to get local governments funding for that project. So now we submitted our 100% to TxDOT as our 30%. See, what you have to do when doing local government projects is that you have to submit a 30% that TxDOT approves.
Yes.
And then you get, everything's okay, then from then on, it's the city's review. But they have to be okay with a good 30%. So now another change on Fort Sam. And then now we're working on a couple of projects for the city. We got one of the bond projects. It was Parent Vital, which connects to the part that you had up there. And Parent Vital, north of 410, it's a road. People just go. They don't stop for anything there.
Yep.
They're just going from one place to the other along Parent Vital.
Point A to point B.
Point A to point B, there's nobody sticking around there. So we're going over, we're going to put a pedestrian bridge over that, Parent Vital. And now the city also is developing the Hebner Creek, but that one crosses Babcock Road near Hebner Road. You all know that, right?
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to cross that. You don't want to have a that grade crossing there.
That's right.
People will hate you if you stop the traffic, and then people might not make it across the 300 feet
Yep.
that is Babcock Road.
Yep.
Anywho, so we're looking to put another pedestrian bridge. It would have been perfect for Babcock Road to have had a bigger culvert. Then we would have been able to go under Babcock Road instead of having to build a bridge over it. That would have been the thing to have. So if cities or anybody's designing culverts across roads, try to put one that is at least 8 by 10. 8 feet tall, 10 feet wide. Now you have a pathway under the road.
Yeah.
Hopefully bigger. Sure, the other ones, but make one
segment.
one box.
Got one box.
One box.
Yep.
Make that one direct
Yep.
drive or something like that. You notice? And raise it 1 foot above the other ones so that one doesn't carry water until later.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Anywho, because we're having to build pedestrian bridges over these roads. So
Well-
that should be neat going over Babcock Road.
Well, we've reached our 9 o'clock mark. I want to be respectful to everybody's time. Appreciate you coming out. Thank Gary and Hernan for their presentations today. They were really good. A lot of great information. Remember, sponsorships for the Scholarship Classic coming up. Scholarship closes at the end of this month, so we need applications to be submitted. Go spread the word. Thanks for coming. Have a great afternoon. Enjoy your weekend.